Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Friday, April 18th, 2025, and today we're going to discuss pill bugs and wood chips, the hidden costs of farming, plus it's Feedback Friday. For real this time, so let's do it. All right, well, happy Friday, y'all. Last Friday, as you will remember, I was laid out on my couch with massive headache and some dehydration. So this week, I'm excited to be here and feeling good and hydrated and accomplished on the week for getting a bunch of stuff planted. We'll talk about all that next week. Maybe for some of you, you are harvesting or wash packing because 'tis the season, or it's at least about to be, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. Those of you in the Southern Hemisphere are probably starting to slow down or even stop for the season and just get to watch us go through our season from the comfort of your couches and high tunnels. So shouts to that. Anyway, it's Friday, which means Feedback Friday, where we explore what you all were saying about this week's topics. On Monday, we talked about the idea of a plastic-free farm, and I liked this from @JeffWegener. 3264, quote, "I look forward to your show every day. Thanks for your efforts. We operate an 80-bed market garden with just 2 of us and absolutely would lose control of weeds without heavy black plastic use. In our heads, it's a better alternative to spraying with herbicides, especially during crop growth. With everyone freaking out about microplastics, I never hear anyone talk about which is worse, plastic or cancer-causing sprays on your food, question marks. Laser weeding robots is on my wish list, but who can afford that? Anyways, no system is perfect. Thanks again for your constant education and reminders throughout the year. We love your mix of continuous experience, humbleness, and intelligence," end quote. Thanks for the comment and the kind words about the show. And of course, the point of that segment was definitely to talk about what the challenges were to a plastic-free farm, free market garden, and not denigrate those who, like myself, do use plastic in their production. I think most people who use plastic would happily use something else if it worked and was reasonably affordable. Again, I have a high tunnel. I still use a tarp to prepare ground sometimes, or at least keep it in place. I have some landscape fabric I will occasionally bust out. I use row covers and insect nettings. I use irrigation and harvest bins and bags for packaging. So I also use a fair amount of plastic on my farm. But also, like you and like everyone else, we're pretty limited on our affordable alternatives. However, I also think that comparing chemicals and plastic and asking which is worse is not the most helpful argument either. They both have significant environmental impacts and health impacts, especially as we are discovering more and more with plastics. So how can we get to a point where growers are using neither chemicals nor plastics that much while demanding others, the much bigger polluters in the world, as well as the individuals, follow suit? I mean, for me, I'm always thinking, what if in 20 or 30 or 50 years, we discover that our plastic usage today is locking up the soils of tomorrow or causing significant health issues in some incredibly dramatic and hard to remediate way? We know it could, so we do have an obligation to, at very least, keep working on solutions and alternatives, even if those conversations are challenging. The great challenge of life, I guess, is living in the world we live in while pushing ourselves to create the world that we want. Then, changing subjects, on Tuesday, we discussed the Plan It and Forget It market garden. Could you develop an annual garden plan that not only produced food, but allowed for a large swath of time off? I liked this from @MHubertCFI, who wrote, quote, "If you had a big enough cooler and a grocery store contract, you could probably sell your crops for a longer period. Or if you made them into something that was stable to sell, I'm sure there are garlic farms doing this and living the idea," end quote. Yeah, thanks. And sure, I mean, products are another way you could grow a massive food and then not have to directly tend the garden for a large swath of time while still having inventory. Also, obviously, I did not include perennials in that talk only because I was focusing on annual plants, but some of the nurseries and perennial growers I know have large periods of downtime where they don't necessarily have to be out in the field doing production tasks, at least not a ton of them, in the same way that annual market gardeners do. Ditto things like grain farming, and you mentioned garlic. That's a great example. You grow a bunch of garlic, you harvest it, and that's pretty much the job. There are periods you have to be in the field weeding or mowing or whatever, but by and large, it's a plant the crop and harvest it sort of thing, so long as you took care of the soil's quality first. Lots of good thoughts all over that thread. On Wednesday, we talked about soil health on a budget, but I also mentioned that the USDA officially canceled the climate smart grants. And this from at Johnny Go Wow, which is a fun name to say, sparked a thought. They wrote, quote, "Love your channel. It's bestowed a wealth of knowledge on me and my kin. I do wonder, though, how one could possibly reconcile the lifestyle of a sustainable farmer with taking grants from the modern industrial system of governance. You lament the fact that farmers have had contracts negated, and as much as I believe in the sanctity of a contract, I'm puzzled as to why one would consider a contract with a bloated, hyper-technological system to be a legitimate contract in the first place. It should have been clear to everyone who's paying attention that grants, loans, money on demand are a terribly risky business. The way I see it, farmers should take risks in the realm of farming, not finance," end quote. Thanks for the thoughtful comment, and I totally get this way of thinking about grants and government funding, but I disagree with the risky business aspect of it. I've talked to a number of farmers recently about these grants and others, and although, sure, the government is slow and the documentation often feels overboard, and no doubt Pickford v. Glickman found significant discrimination from the USDA, but the USDA has been a relatively reliable funding entity for at least the last couple decades, especially for small fries when some private lenders would barely give you the time of day. I had one private lender who basically laughed at me when I asked for a $12,000 loan for BCS once. That's not hyperbole. That they just stopped returning my calls or paying any sort of attention. It felt very humiliating. And to your point about contracts, I think people consider it a legitimate contract for the simple fact that they sign it and both parties agree to the terms. That's all any contract is. Sanctity is the correct term. Without contracts, we have nothing. No mortgages, no job security, no insurance, no car loans, no land deeds, no marriages. Contracts are the glue of civil society. Without the respect and honor of them, it's just paper. And the precedent that the USDA sets by breaking contracts for farmers, no less, but the precedent that sets for powerful private industries as well, it's frankly chilling. Anyway, shouts to the people like Johnny Go Wow, still fun to say, who disagree with me, but they do it without the sort of shut up and dribble tone. If something affects farmers, I'm just going to talk about it, and you might not like what I have to say about it, but know that I do welcome and appreciate the alternative opinions, especially when they're done like that. So I appreciate you all. Then on Thursday, we talked about how much water you would need for a sort of off-grid water setup, and a couple people suggested reusing the wash water from the wash pack shed, like at Teal Kerberos 748, who wrote, quote, "If you can direct your spent wash water into a settling pond, you should be able to get clear enough water from that to run through a pump for irrigation or similar purposes. You'll need to clean out the settled dirt from the bottom of the pond occasionally, of course," end quote. Indeed, there are ways to do that, to sort of reclaim that water. And in fact, you can check that video out that I shot last year, I think. I don't actually remember. I think it was last year. But when I shot that video with Sage Hill Ranch Gardens out there in Escondido, California, about how they are reusing the wash water from their wash pack. They are in a slightly different situation, being on an extreme slope, but they basically just reclaim all their wash water and use it all in the gardens. But I will get that video in the show notes for you all to check out. And Spencer talks about the sediment and how they deal with that. Anyway, great stuff as always this week. You all are awesome. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, wood chips and the bugs who love them. BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by Farmhand. I started a CSA to grow food and build community, not to drown in admin work. Spreadsheets, emails, and pack lists take up too much time. If I could spend less time at my desk and more in the field, that'd be a win. Enter Farmhand. Farmhand automates billing, newsletters, websites, and member support, saving CSA farmers 20 plus hours a week. Focus on farming, not paperwork. See how Farmhand can help. Book a one-on-one demo with founder Ari at farmhand.partners/no-till. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener, are enjoying this content, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions now. Today's Patreon question comes from Patreon member Jesse Turretts, who writes, quote, "Hey, Farmer Jesse, thanks again so much for answering my question last month about dry farming in Los Angeles. I really appreciate how you took the context of my situation and tailored it to me. I have a follow-up question, or maybe it's more of a follow-up problem. Both. I've always loved utilizing mulch, especially wood chip mulch. In my home garden, wood chip mulch is a great way for me to generate my own forest products from fruit tree prunings and hedging. Similarly, Los Angeles City offers free wood chips 5 days a week at local pickup sites. At my newest garden, parenthetically, they write renter, The wood chips seem to result in heavy impact from roly-polies, pillbugs, slaters. Talking about seedlings gone overnight from these guys, and they say I've seen it myself, not slugs. I really want to return to using wood chips as a mulch. I went all last year without it for the fear of little gray crustaceans. Other gardens I've had in LA really benefit in summer months from the thick layer of arborist chips. Similarly, if I can persevere, chop and drop methods would work well for my intensive garden. Compost mulches work for the bugs, but require pretty frequent watering. In comparison, it's also expensive compared to free mulch. I don't have reliable access to straw or hay, but when I have used it, it dries out too quickly and takes a long time to break down. In an effort this year to use less water, I guess my question is this. If I persist with wood chips and work on my seedling resilience, can I trust the birds and lizards to come eventually? Or should I lean further towards compost mulches as seemingly they are middle ground? Thanks for all you do. I spend every morning watching the show before the kids wake up, keeping my farm dream alive. End quote. Okay, so thanks, Jesse, which again, great name. So this is a unique situation in that you have found wood chips are effective as a mulch in your context and would prefer them, but the roly-poly / pillbug population is making that a bit complicated. A lot of people struggle with wood chips as a bed mulch because the wood chips can really limit production, though through leaching and or tying up nitrogen at the surface level, as we've discussed before. But in a very dry climate where the rain is not enabling them to leach and the decomposition is slow due to the lack of moisture, perhaps your context is ripe for wood chips to make a decent, maybe longer lasting mulch, which is kind of interesting to me. Maybe there's some more research that could be done on wood chips in a dry climate versus wood chips in a wet climate. But anyway, Jesse also wrote that their gardens consist of a 20 by 4 foot mini orchard, a 20 by 4 foot mini copse, 4 beds totaling 84 square feet of annual production, and around 100 square feet of established native garden. Taken all together, to be sure, the pillbugs roly-poly population would like to shred those wood chips for you, and they will absolutely complicate things in the garden, as will the slugs that you will no doubt have. And that likely won't change as long as you are adding fresh wood chips. Yes, as mentioned, eventually the ecology will balance out a bit, and some predators will get savvy, especially having those trees and native gardens around. But dry climates may sometimes be relatively low on predatory biology, and within the city of Los Angeles, there is a lack of native habitat for that sort of biology to really thrive, likely limiting its ability to help in your garden as much as it may in a garden outside of town. So as I see it, you have two main options, I guess. One is to just use the wood chips and use transplants instead of seeds to get the garden growing. You will also likely want to apply some compost at the planting hole to limit any potential loss incurred from the wood chips stealing surface nitrogen. Now, that will mean things like carrots are probably out of the picture because you can't directly seed into that, but most things would be good to grow from starts. Then your second option is just using the compost, or perhaps using a combo where you do a small swath of compost around where you intend to plant, and then use wood chips around that area to mulch just around it. So maybe a 3-inch thick band of compost with wood chips on either side for something like carrots. That may limit the pillbug population right around those crops and allow for a simpler irrigation setup if you wanted. Your context is very interesting to me. You know, it's really hard to grasp how dry that soil gets and how little it rains out there. So where there is moisture, there will be biology, but unfortunately, it's often the disruptors who arrive first and most prolifically, i.e. your pillbugs. Anyway, I am not sure if I helped there, but those are some thoughts that your question inspired. So hopefully it gave you something to think about. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, the hidden but literal cost of farming. Be right back. Today's episode is also brought to you by FarmRaise. Still using QuickBooks for your farm's bookkeeping? You're wasting time and losing money. Farm finances can be overwhelming, but they don't have to be. FarmRaise Tracks is the all-in-one tool built just for farmers. Manage expenses, prep for taxes, run payroll, and plan for the future without spreadsheets or stress. Just clear, organized insights to keep your operation thriving. Thousands of farmers trust Tracks to make smart financial decisions all year long. It's time you did too. Use code NOTIL20, that's all caps, no spaces, NOTIL20 for 20% off the life of your membership at farmraise.com. All right, back to the show. All right, so doing our taxes this year, I was thinking about the idea of what it costs just to own the land we own. Like if we did basically nothing with the farm that we own revenue-wise, what would it cost to just own our nearly 6 acres plus our house? To be clear, tax rates vary by state and even by county and by whether or not you're producing something on your farm versus not. But let's just say this is what it costs to own our farm that we own right now without any yearly farm expenses like seeds, tools, the stuff that it requires for operation. I think they call those operational costs. Anyway, let's start with property tax. In Kentucky, our property tax here is relatively low compared to the rest of the nation. Our county's, I think, is like 0.837%, meaning that our property tax is just under $3,000 a year for our farm and house. Next, to keep this property insured through the year, it's around $550 or so per month, or $6,600 a year, which brings us currently to almost around $10,000 just to own the property. Depending on utilities, like say you have an outbuilding and or use irrigation, that will also drive up the cost a bit of just possessing the farm. We also paid around $6,000 in interest on our mortgage this past year. So basically, we paid Ag Credit, whom I like, it's a good crediting agency, around $6,000 last year for our loan. And that's not including the interest on the loan for our farm van. And continuing on with other expenses, obviously there is management of the farm, mowing or fixing fences or whatever may need to be done. So that could also be calculated in, but let's say baseline, and you're not including any labor, utilities, or anything else, just taxes, insurance, and interest paid, it's around $16,000 to $18,000 per year for us to own a farm with our house on it. Indeed, nearly $20,000 per year just to own around 6 acres. And that's before buying seeds or tools or anything else. Now, these are our numbers. Obviously, everybody's numbers are going to be different. And obviously, the interest piece goes down as we pay down the loan. And I don't have an opinion on if $16,000 to $20,000 is a reasonable amount of money for what it is. Just stating the reality, a reality that I think is not clear or often talked about when people start talking about starting farms or specifically buying land, which as much as I love farming and want to see farmland stay farmland and all of those good things, I want to see it done successfully. Thus, why I talk about these perhaps less sexy realities. Effectively, in the eyes of, the government, state, local, all that stuff, farmland is just a place of business in the same way that a warehouse or a storefront is a place of business, which, yes, is sad and misguided, but is the reality. But I'm not trying to editorialize on that so much as just make sure it's clear to those of us who, like I did, are looking romantically at farming and farmland to make sure it's clear that you appreciate those costs before getting yourself into expenses and debt that will hobble your dream every year. I mean, that will eat up an enormous piece of your capital. However, that doesn't have to be a bad thing. These somewhat hidden costs just have to be taken seriously through things like a business plan, a reasonable amount of capital, a good family and farm budget, and some willingness to work really, really hard. The romantic farm dream doesn't have to die, but it does have to be planned out for it to be born and grow and become real. So I hope you don't feel discouraged, but I do hope you feel slightly more informed because these things were certainly not clear to me until, we started filing our first Schedule F after we bought our first property. And I was like, ouch. Have there been financial surprises like that for you along the way that you wish you'd understood better going in or that you feel like somebody should know? Let us know. All right, that's it for my motivational speech for the week. I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope Brighton has a great weekend, and same for Louisville Racing and FC Cincinnati and all the things. And then also go me in our No-Till Growers MLS Fantasy League, in which I am leading everyone who is 11th place or lower. But we're going to wrap it up there after this one last quick message from our dear friends at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems. Whether you're growing tomatoes for markets, flowers in the spring, or vegetables for your family, growing in a high tunnel protected from the weather provides the right environment for a harvest you can count on. Rimmel greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel Greenhouse Systems will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse or high tunnel investment. Visit Rimmel.com today to get growing. Don't forget, we are now officially a 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you've ever thought, that looks like fun, I should sponsor a show, you can do so. You can reach out to Farmer Michelle at no-tillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and the team at No-Till Growers. Also shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Good Friday tune, probably. whatever Mike picked. Pick up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook or the Seed Farmer at no-tillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or sign up in the month of April, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Liz Kopic, William Coffey, and Mark. Ooh, Mark, your first name is cool. It's got more letters than you would expect. Mark Stanley. All right, shouts to those Patreon members for coming in clutch here, because this story almost didn't get an ending, but we're back at the Energy Potato Farm. The gang has just broken into the facility where the potatoes are stored, and they're kind of trying to get their own potatoes just because the experience was awesome, when they discover something that leaves them speechless. Remembering that the energy potato seemed to slow down time for them, but in reality sped them up. It seems that on this energy farm, this group was using the potatoes to power a large, hairy creature running on a hamster wheel turbine, when they realized, no, that's just a giant hamster. And it wasn't just running, it was turbo running, like faster than any hamster you've ever seen. And it was powering this massive generator, and it was the size of a small horse. So the gang knew what they had to do. It was time first to free the hamster, and then steal some potatoes for themselves and run as fast as they could away from that place, which they knew would be the fastest any of them, or maybe anyone has ever ran. And that concludes Jolt Tatoes, name sent to us from @EarnTaco. So shouts to that. All right. You all have a great weekend. We will see you back here on Monday. It'll be awesome. Thanks, you all. Bye.